Thank you, Sally. This is an interesting experience. I forgot two more things. First of all, well, the conference language is English, but most of us are not native speakers. So we are still struggling, and I'm still struggling with English, with correct English, with sophisticated English, you know. And the thing is, you can ask questions, please. I would like to encourage you to ask questions, to make comments, etc. And if you're not comfortable with English, do it in Dari, German, whatever language, and then we will find somebody who will translate. So this shouldn't be an obstacle not to make a mandatory contribution. The second thing I forgot is outside there are some posters from distinguished Afghan scholars, and they will place themselves in front of their research. Actually, when they I really received wonderful emails. I want to also present my research. It was 2 weeks ago or even 1 week ago when the program was totally finished and extremely tight already. So it wasn't possible to introduce them to keynotes and other workshops, etc. But they are there, the research is there, and you can go into discussions with the scholars. They will present their research and they will be happy if you have some discussions with them. So, Sima, thank you so much to be in Freiburg for the third time. We are very honored and very pleased. And my rector already introduced you a bit, so we have a tight schedule, so if you allow me, let me hand over to you without any more, because you're famous.
Good morning, everyone. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure and my honor to be here, and I'm glad that I am here for the third time, but I've been involved with your work, and your support was key to Dawashal as well. I would like to begin with remembering the victims of violence around the world, including the women in Afghanistan. And I would like everybody to have a 30 seconds of silence. Thank you. The topic that I'm going to speak is human rights, the situation of human rights in Afghanistan, and also, of course, related to the topic of the program, the shared struggle, shared future, and solidarity. The situation of human rights in Afghanistan, I think Richard is sitting here. We have been friends and we know each other since 25 years. He would say more, but I would say that no other country in this planet is suffering from a human rights violation with impunity than Afghanistan. The violation of human rights in Afghanistan, unfortunately, turned to be a culture. And my personal fear is it's 5 years. During this 5 years, people are getting used to it, and it turned to be normal within the families, within the community, within the society. The violation of human rights is really for all the people, but particularly they focus on women and the minorities. Why it's common for everybody? If you begin from freedom of expression. I'm a medical doctor. When we were delivering the babies, the one who was crying loudly and quickly, we were calling it Kelty. He or she had 10, the mark which we were giving, 10. The one who was delayed, slow, crying or even breathing, then that was not healthy. So we were giving the lower number, the lower mark. Unfortunately, Afghanistan is unhealthy in this sense. And that is done by the regime. If we talk about access to education, in my personal view, and I know that I insist, I spend all of my life to promote education in Afghanistan. During the first Taliban, before the Taliban, during even Najib regime, I was promoting the education, access to education for the boys and girls in order to build their capacity to be free, to put a better foundation for any society and for their personalities. So it's easy, I mean, somehow it became very normalized around the world that, oh, women and girls are not going to school beyond 6th grade, they are not going to university behind or after 6th grade. Then what? This is their culture. This is not our culture. Actually, with this policy, they destroy the future of the country. And that disease will reach everybody else, not only Afghanistan. And that sickness already reached to the different countries, including, I was in a conference recently with some people from Mali, from Burkina Faso, I cannot really name it properly, or Nigeria, or in people still in Syria. I mean, the person who have nice suit doesn't mean that his mind is changed. So it is a struggle, and it's reached everybody else. The people in Mali, for example, they say that if the Taliban can stop the access to education for the women, in control women in Afghanistan, we can do it. I think with all the respect with our American, half European person in the room, some people, conservative, unfortunately young Americans, did say this, that why not? We should have the same policy as Taliban for women in this country. So it's not funny, it's not joke. It is learning from each other. And it's following. Why not education for women? Because women should not be free. When we get education, we're trying to act equally, we're trying to behave equally, we have our own income, then we don't ask permission for everything. They don't want to like that. Honestly, let's be honest and acknowledge that we live in a patriarchal world. Even the converted men sometimes is actually the way they think, the way they're making some jokes, then it's really male kind of jokes. My staff, my colleague, which Richard knows, some of them were really converted so-called men, but when they were sitting among themselves without women, their joke was not right. They're making joke about body of women, they're making joke about the lipstick of women. This is not, this is the culture. This is the natural attitude of masculinity or male opinion and ideas. We face all these things. When one of my colleagues, we were talking about it, how a female boss can help. And then one of the staff said, well, I have female boss at home and I have female boss, and the same person had 3 daughters and he was trying to have a son. The same person. And then we had another staff who had 6 daughters. The husband and the wife was lecturer at the University of Kabul, and he was still trying to have a son. So these are, I mean, it's normal in Afghanistan, okay? They don't really pay attention, it's their private. But it's not, it's the mentality. So when they put pressure on the clothing that women wear, it's not only in Afghanistan. When I see in the feminist, let's say, conferences, in Latin America, for example, when a woman is raped or abused, oh, she had such a short skirt. And the top was so short, it was so open. So the clothes of women should not encourage the men to sexually abuse a female. They should control themselves. So in Afghanistan, I keep saying, because they have weaknesses, they cannot control their temper, their attitude, then we are weak. So I think these are all political, only I think education, and the quality of education is a political act. We cannot distinguish between education by saying that no, we are not acting politically. It is a political act, because when we educate people, they are making honest decisions. They're making positive impact within the society. They're promoting democracy. So it is an education. I mean, you all know what they did about all women in Afghanistan, even with the new laws. They legalized forced marriage, they legalized domestic violence, they legalized child marriage. Recently, in one of their laws, they have more than 160 laws which only restrict women's rights. And it's more painful for me because when I was put as a Minister of Women's Affairs, I didn't have money, I didn't have resources, so I really tried hard to establish that Ministry of Women's Affairs. And I was cleaning the windows, I was brooming the rooms. We didn't have vacuum, the vacuum. Electrical vacuum was not available in Kabul. So that ministry quickly was changed, the board was taken out and put the Ministry of Vice and Virtue. And the main job of the Vice and Virtue is controlling women and restricting women and freedom. So it is really, really painful because how can you look at this? In the same way with the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, I took the risk to be killed in order to promote human rights in Afghanistan. Then somebody comes and abolishes because they don't really want it, because they don't want to accept that they are equal. And that itself, when you don't believe on equality, you're already violating the human rights. And you are already putting the seed of conflict. So I keep giving this example. When a male member of the family thinks that he's superior than the female, there is a conflict. The son and the daughter of that family behave differently. So we in Gawashat, we were starting to train the girls and boys, the students, on gender equality. So because it's so sensitive and they keep saying, oh, you just promote women to stand against all the values which value? Against the tradition, which tradition? The tradition, specifically in Afghanistan, is unwritten code by men. A woman behavior, a woman clothing, a woman walking, a woman singing, a woman's voice is the honor of the male member of the family. That should not be the case. For example, when they say, if the son does something, okay, he's a son, he's a man, it doesn't matter. But if a girl laughs loudly, she destroyed the honor of the family. In this level, so it becomes really deep within the society. The other issues that they really restrict the rights of the minorities, of course, everybody knows that there is a lot of pressure on the Hazaras and the Shias. They restrict a lot of their mobility, including issuing a letter in the universities, private and public universities, that they should convert to Sunni, to Hanafi religion. And not alone all the other things that they don't allow the Ahmadis, the Sufis, the Sikh and Hindus to perform their rites in the field. Forced displacement of the Hazaras, taking their land, killing them, and nobody is punished. The Shias, the recent one, after March in Nowruz we have in April actually, 15 people, they went with their family just to, there's a culture again. People are walking on the grasses to welcome the grass in the new year. That is a culture I don't know what's in English, I'll explain it in English. But they're going to walk on the greeneries, whatever grasses on the ground, to bring the good luck, to bring a new, better year. And they were just shocked because they were Shias. And they line up the men and start shooting at them, the family, the children, and their wife and daughters. They run and they start shooting at them as well. So these are, it comes in the media and then it goes. That is fueling the culture of impunity. So, no access to justice, no fair trial. And the increased corruption is always contributing to injustice in a country, because in a situation that you don't have a proper rule of law and a proper fair trial, then there's a possibility of buying and selling the justice. And corruption has really gone up in the country, much more than the Republic. I'm not defending the Republic because I was part of the Republic, although I was not part of the government, but I was part of the structure of the state. So it is really the situation. It's difficult to explain. I think unless you live in a country and you feel it. I, as an Afghan, I was not really thinking that we will have the same situation again in the country. I witnessed the first round, and then after 20 years, I see it again. And that is not simply people saying, oh, our Afghans were not capable, they were corrupt, yes. But why you were there? You were there to help us. Did you complete the job? No. And then now you're silent because you don't want to remind yourself of failure. And the issues of human rights and the universality of human rights is another issue. Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong. Yes. Dangerous. I think the other point that I would like to mention, women's access to reproductive rights and reproductive health. Access to health is also basic human rights. But women's lack of access to reproductive rights is actually a public health problem. It's not only simply saying that they are pregnant every year and they are increase the poverty and the mother and child mortality rate increase, and we have so many children without having access to the proper education, then of course they go in those madrasas and they turn to be colored. We had the same problem 40 years ago, and it continues to be the same problem. So it is actually problematic. Encouraged lack of access to education, increased child marriage, increased poverty in the country. And then that families are forced to sell a 10-year-old daughter to a man who is 35 to feed the rest of the family. And this 10-year or 12-year or even 14 years child turned to be a slave. A sexual slave for somebody who wants to use the property of somebody. So the different kind of slavery actually is existing in Afghanistan and is promoted by some of the people. On the corruption and the destruction of the environment, of course they're using the mines with different companies. China is one, but the other countries are also involved. I mean, if you look at the gold destruction in the north of the country, they're really polluting the water that the people use daily with chemicals, not only with chemicals, with their own waste, I would say, because there's no proper toilet or sanitation. So it's really the people who are on the down side or the down road of the river, they're using that. They're drinking from that, they're washing themselves from that, they're washing their clothes, they're giving that to their children. So imagine, with a lot of chemicals that they use for extracting the gold, and also with their own pieces and jewelry and anything. So when it comes to the universality of human rights, or we believe that human rights values are universal. If we do, the Taliban is violating from Universal Declaration of Human Rights up to the last UN plan, including SDG. We made SDG, we clapped for SDG, that SDG would be bringing people out of poverty and the hunger, I don't know what and what, but what? And they act against all of those. That's why I think